back to another episode of Payne Free Advice. I'm your host, Callie Holt with Farm Forum, and I'm joined here with Eric Payne of Insurance Plus. Thank you again for joining us. It's getting pretty nice out.
It's a gorgeous day. You know, I've had a lot of guys call me. They're getting planters out, getting ready to get in the field. I think they're getting pretty anxious.
I think so. Well, we have a lot to cover this week in regards to some very specific dates and processes that one needs to adhere to. Why don't you start off by telling us some of those?
Yeah. So the planting dates that we're going to talk about, of course, the big three that are around here, which would be corn, soybeans, and wheat. Mm-hmm. The earliest of which you can get in the field with is wheat. The earliest, we have an early plant date and we have a final plant date. You don't want to plant before the early plant date because there's really no guarantee of coverage. When we talk about the early plant date, that is specifically when that company or insurance will take hold of the crop.
Okay.
So the earliest plant date for spring wheat in this area is March 26th, and that runs through May 15th, which would be the final plant date to have the full coverage that you chose on your multi-peril product. Corn would be April 10th, would be the earliest, and the final would be May 25th. Soybeans, earliest plant date would be April 26th, and the final plant date would be June 10th. You can plant later than the final plant dates, which we call the late plant period. Every day that you plant in that late plant period past the final plant date, which runs 25 days, by the way, is 1% lower of coverage. So you can think about it, well, I have full coverage, the 75% coverage level like we talked about in previous episodes. Every day that you plant after that final plant date is going to be 1% less in coverage.
So now, what if I plant it, everything goes well, and then it doesn't come up?
Good question. We have, within the basic policy that you purchased, the multi-peril policy, there's a replant option. Okay. If you were to, say, plant corn, beautiful day, you get all the corn in, and we get a soaker that next day, and it just totally crusts over, or maybe some seed runs off, something where the crop doesn't come up. There's that replant option for you built into the policy. And really, it's kind of up to the grower, depending on when it happens, whether or not they want to replant that same crop. If you do, though, don't just assume you can just go right back out there and plant those acres. You need to call your agent. You need to notify your agent of that replant loss, and the agent will then turn it into the company, and the company actually has to give you as a farmer the okay to go ahead and replant that crop.
So even if I'm prepared, I gotta wait for that okay.
That's right.
So now we've dealt with wet springs and all of that jazz. What are my options for if I can't get in the field?
Good question. Of course, that's the big elephant in the room, which is prevent plant claims. That was a big cause for concern last year with all the snow that we got, and it'll be a big cause of concern for this year with the rain that we got last summer, last fall. So yeah, let's first start by talking about when you turn it in. You got to notify your agent, of course, when you think you may have a prevent plant claim, and you need to do that within 72 hours of the final plant date, which, of course, for instance, let's take corn. When we talked, it was May 25th. So you have, within 72 hours, you got to let your agent know if you're going to have a prevent plant claim, and then, of course, we notify the company. However, remember, you do have that late plant period that you can still try to plant that crop. So if you want to try to continue to plant that crop until June 1st, you can, and then maybe you're done. So that at that point, you need to call your agent and make sure that they know that you are going to have a prevent plant claim.
So Eric, how do I know if my acres qualify for prevent plant?
Good question. There are rules that we have to follow in order for your acres to qualify. First of which, the acres need to have been available for planting. They can't be, underwater for 5, 6, 7 years. Can't be a rock pile. Can't be a tree growth, so on and so forth. We need to have a cause of loss, which of course we have one. Whether that was the rain last fall or last summer, or maybe even the big snowstorms we had. And then of course it would have had to have been, those acres would have had to have been planted, insured, and harvested in one of the last 4 in order to qualify. Also, you'd have to have at least, we call this the 20-20 rule. You would have had to have had at least 20 acres or 20% of the unit has to be prevent plant acres in order for those prevent plant acres to qualify. So by unit, let's just take, for example, a farmer who has 1/4 of land. So in that 160 acres, at least 20 acres will have had to have been prevent plan in order for all of them to qualify. You wouldn't be able to just have, say, 10 of those acres.
Right.
So
Say everything goes good and we're in the middle of summer, and now what?
Now is time to report your acres.
So the acreage reporting deadline for both crop insurance and FSA is July 15th. It's kind of a myth to many people that we have to report to FSA first before we report to crop insurance. That's really not true. If you want to report to your crop insurance agent first, most of the time, many agents are ready to go by that final plant date for soybeans of June 10th. We have all the acreage reports printed. We're ready for you to report. So if your FSA appointment isn't maybe till mid-July, sometimes late July, after the 15th, go ahead and get an appointment set up with your crop insurance agent and come in and report those acres to us. You can take that same information over to FSA and turn it into FSA and report those acres then to FSA at that time.
So now everything goes good. I've got a pretty good crop going, and it's mid to late summer, and I see a storm brewing on radar. What can I do to cover myself?
Well, good question. I'm assuming you're referring to hail insurance. Hail insurance is a unique product on its own. It is a private product. It is not going to be a federally subsidized product like the multi-peril that we've been talking about. So each company has their own little intricacies about each hail product. Okay, there's many different types. The most common ones are going to be your basic hail. You can get a deductible plan where maybe you have 5, 10, 15% deductible. You can get a comp plan, and then there's also what we call a hail production plan, which works along with your multi-peril insurance and looks at covering the production. The other unique part about hail insurance is it covers your fields for hail on an individual field basis, whereas multi-peril, most guys around here are taking this enterprise unit option, which what the enterprise unit does for multi-peril is it would throw all your corn bushels in that county into basically one basket when it comes to claim time. So if you have multiple different fields, say 10 different fields of corn, and in that county, and they're kind of spread out throughout the county, and you have an enterprise unit, it's going to toss them all in one when it comes to claim time, where this will take it, each field will have its own separate coverage for hail.
Nice. And you really encourage producers to sit down with you and kind of go over these different policies, because you have some unique abilities.
Yes, we do, and I think what we're pointing towards is the 2-hour binding authority, and that is pretty common to most of the companies. I would say that most any agent is going to have that, but it is a 2-hour binding authority for us with our companies. What that means is that as long as you kind of have your ducks in a row, you know the type of plan you want, the number of acres we're talking, the township and county it's in, and the dollar amount of coverage you want to put on that crop, you can let us know, and within 2 hours of us sending all that information to the company, you would technically have coverage. And we would send it probably via email, so it has a timestamp, and then we would need to have a signature on that application within, say, 3-4 days. But yes, that is very unique to this product. Even your homeowner's insurance, usually we can say it's effective this day, but it's effective at a certain time that day. So it is very unique in that aspect. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, as always, so much to think about, and a lot of it really boils down to making sure you're getting in to see your agent.
Yes,
really,
absolutely.
really is. So thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Payne Free Advice. We want to encourage you to reach out with any questions that you have at all. Where can people reach you?
They can reach out to us directly on our Insurance Plus Facebook page. You can also call us at the office at 225-4270, or if you want to, go ahead and feel free to put a question in the comments below.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it. It's been fun to have you here, and I can't wait for next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great week.